My sister's polyamorous wedding was great, until my boyfriend got cornered and harassed by her husband's girlfriend, who then lied about it, accused me of being polyphobic, and nearly blew up the whole family. Now I'm the villain for calling her out? My older sister recently got married to her longtime fiancé, and honestly, I was genuinely happy for them. Their relationship isn't conventional by most standards, they're polyamorous, and both have separate partners outside their marriage. It was something they were open about from the beginning, and while it's not the kind of relationship I would choose for myself, I respect that it works for them. Love looks different for everyone, right? Over the past couple of years, I've had the chance to meet my sister's boyfriend a few times during holiday events, and I have to say, he's actually a really nice guy. He's quiet, respectful, and always kind to everyone in the room, including my parents who had a harder time wrapping their heads around the whole poly dynamic. He clearly cares about my sister, and I've never gotten any weird or uncomfortable vibes from him. That made it easier to accept the whole situation, even if it took a little adjusting at first. Then there's my brother-in-law's girlfriend. Let's call her Sally. I've only met her once, and that was at their engagement party. At first, she came off as friendly, maybe a little overeager, but nothing too concerning. But as the evening went on, her energy started to feel intense. Like she needed the spotlight on her at all times. She talked over people constantly, even interrupted my mom mid-sentence while she was sharing a story. Sally also insisted on helping my sister open the engagement gifts, which might have seemed sweet, but it felt more like she was trying to be center stage. She kept telling everyone she was the reason my sister and Bil were getting married because she was officiating the ceremony, which was strange since obviously their relationship had been years in the making before Sally even entered the picture. Still, I bit my tongue. It wasn't my party. If my sister and her fiancé were okay with it, who was I to judge? But things took a definite turn as the evening went on, and Sally started drinking more. What began as slightly annoying behavior escalated into something way more uncomfortable for everyone there. At one point, Sally stood in the middle of the living room, loudly going off about how monogamy was a disease, how it was killing real love, and that anyone who didn't practice polyamory was jealous, insecure, and controlling. At first, people sort of nervously laughed or tried to change the subject, but she wouldn't let it go. It turned into a full-blown rant. She was practically shouting about how closed relationships are based in fear and shame, and she kept referencing how sad and boring monogamous people were. It was incredibly uncomfortable. You could see people shifting in their seats, looking at each other like, is this seriously happening? I even saw my aunt whisper to my cousin that they were going to leave early, and they did, along with several other guests. It got that bad. My brother-in-law actually took Sally aside and tried to calm her down. You could tell he was frustrated but trying to keep the peace. But even after that, she came back and kept pushing the same rhetoric. She was completely oblivious to the fact that she'd just cleared half the room. The vibe had totally shifted from celebration to awkward tension. My sister, bless her, tried to change the subject quickly and said, "Let's not get into that right now," but Sally pushed. So, I calmly told her that I'd tried a polyamorous relationship in the past, realized it wasn't for me, and that now I was in a really happy, committed monogamous relationship. I also said I fully supported whatever made people happy, as long as everyone was respected and informed. Once she was gone, my sister let out this long, exhausted sigh and told me Sally was normally a good person, but she tends to make her identity as the poly one her whole personality, especially when she's drinking. Apparently, this wasn't the first time she had made people uncomfortable. My sister looked embarrassed and honestly kind of drained. So there I was, helping my sister clean up from the engagement party, when Sally, completely tipsy, decided it was the perfect moment to corner me and start grilling me about my stance on polyamory. My boyfriend couldn't make it that night due to work, so I already felt like I had to be on extra polite mode just to avoid any drama. My sister tried to shut it down quickly, telling Sally it wasn't the time or place, but Sally wasn't having it. She kept pressing, almost as if she was trying to prove something. I calmly told her that I'd tried polyamory before and realized it just wasn't for me, that I was now in a happy, monogamous relationship, but I fully supported non-monogamous relationships and believed people should do what works for them. I figured that would be enough. But before she could say whatever was clearly bubbling up in her throat, my sister stepped in, firmly this time, and told Sally to go lay down. She stomped off in a dramatic huff. My sister apologized afterward and admitted Sally sometimes makes being poly her entire personality and that it's caused some friction before. I appreciated her saying that. It made me feel like I wasn't crazy for sensing that something was off. Fast forward a few weeks later to the wedding. The day was genuinely beautiful. Everyone looked amazing and my sister was glowing. I was just so happy to see her so happy. My boyfriend was finally able to be there too, and it felt good to have him by my side for such a big event in my family. During the reception, we were talking to my mom when Sally approached. She greeted my mom first, who of course hugged her like they were old friends, and then said a quick hello to me and my boyfriend. Nothing seemed weird. She was smiling, casual, even kind of charming. Just regular wedding small talk. I let my guard down. We said our hellos and moved on. A little later, my boyfriend offered to go get us drinks while I stayed behind to dance with my sister. It was a sweet little moment for the two of us, just laughing and twirling to the music like we were kids again. After a while, though, I realized he'd been gone longer than expected. I assumed maybe the bar was just slow, but something didn't sit right. So I went to find him. What I saw next. Honestly, I'm still furious just thinking about it. There he was over by the drink table, cornered. His back was literally pressed against the wall, and standing right in front of him was Sally. She was way too close, violating every bit of personal space, and every time he tried to inch away, she closed the gap again. Her hand was on his arm, rubbing it in this slow, overly familiar way that made my stomach turn. I couldn't hear their full conversation over the music, but when he saw me coming, the look of relief on his face was instant. That was all I needed to see. And then I heard it, Sally, in this whiny, coaxing tone, saying, "Oh, come on." I don't know what she was trying to convince him of, but it didn't take much imagination. I walked right up, took the drink from my boyfriend's hand, and that finally made her step back a little. Her expression didn't shift much, still smug, like she hadn't just been caught cornering someone else's partner at a wedding. I asked flat out, "What were you two talking about?" And without missing a beat, she looked me dead in the eye and said, in this syrupy, flirtatious voice, "I was just telling him how much I love gingers." I could feel my stomach turn. My boyfriend, bless him, looked like he wanted to disappear. I think he was trying to politely brush her off without making a scene, but she clearly didn't care about boundaries. I kept my voice calm, but I wasn't going to pretend everything was fine. I said, "Maybe stop being a fucking cunt and try flirting with one of the many single people at this wedding." Her face twisted like she wanted to say something clever, but I was already pulling my boyfriend away and, honestly, didn't care what she had to say. I'd seen enough. The rest of the night? Thankfully, uneventful. We danced, we ate cake, we toasted the bride and groom. I kept my distance from Sally, and so did my boyfriend. I noticed she kept glancing our way, but she didn't try to approach again. We left a bit early, mostly because I needed to decompress and my boyfriend was still shaken up. A few days later, I got a text from my brother-in-law. He said I owed Sally an apology. His exact words were, "Flirting is part of Sally's personality, and she didn't mean anything by it. You overreacted." I stared at my phone for a full minute before typing back. I told him that one day, Sally's going to flirt with the wrong person, and they're not going to be as nice as me. She's going to end up with her feelings, and probably her face hurt. He didn't reply right away, but when he did, it was just to say I was being petty and dramatic. When I told my sister and my mom about the exchange, they both said I was 100% justified. My sister, especially, seemed upset. She said Sally had always had a bit of a main character complex, but that this crossed a line. Apparently, she read through the text between Bil and Sally, and her words were, "Shit isn't adding up." That led to the idea of having a sit-down. My sister said we should all talk, me, my boyfriend, her, and my Bil. I agreed, mostly because I wanted my boyfriend to have a chance to say how uncomfortable he was and to make it clear this wasn't some jealous girlfriend overreacting situation. Then Bil suggested we invite Sally to the meeting so she could defend herself. I laughed out loud. Absolutely not. My boyfriend was harassed at a family wedding. He was polite, he didn't make a scene, and he's been kind through this whole thing. I am not putting him in the same room as his harasser, just so she can spin the story or cry about being misunderstood. My veto was firm, and thankfully, my sister backed me up. We're supposed to meet tonight. I don't know how it's going to go, but I'm ready to say what needs to be said. This isn't just about some awkward flirtation. It's about boundaries, respect, and the fact that if someone can't handle basic decency, especially when told no, they don't belong in our lives. Sally might be part of their poly arrangement, but that doesn't make her untouchable. And it certainly doesn't excuse cornering my boyfriend like that. The day after the wedding, once things settled and my sister had a moment to breathe, I sat her down and told her everything. Not just about the flirtation, but about how uncomfortable and cornered my boyfriend felt. She was shocked, obviously, and genuinely upset. But she also asked me to wait until they were back from their honeymoon before she talked to her husband, my brother-in-law, about it. I agreed, even though it meant sitting with this awful feeling a bit longer. When they got back, she finally told Bill. And that's when things got messy. He texted Sally to get her side of the story, and I finally understood why he'd been so angry at me. She fed him a load of absolute lies. According to Sally, all she did was tell my boyfriend that he was cute, lie number one, and I just so happened to overhear it and, apparently, went berserk. She admitted I called her a cunt, but then went on to claim that I also said a bunch of terrible, polyphobic things, lie number two, that, frankly, are so far from my character it would be laughable if it weren't so damaging. I was floored. My BIL has known me for over a decade. We've had holidays, birthdays, family game nights together, and somehow, he was willing to believe that I would suddenly go full hate speech on his girlfriend in the middle of his wedding reception. Meanwhile, he's only known Sally for 6 months. He even admitted to my sister that she has lied to him before. And still, he thought maybe, just maybe, I snapped and started spewing insults at her unprovoked. To settle things, we agreed to get Sally on the phone so everyone could hear her story firsthand. That's when everything started to unravel. Almost immediately, my sister clocked that Sally's story on the phone didn't match what she had texted earlier. It wasn't even subtle. First, she claimed I had overheard a harmless comment. Then, when asked again, it became something about me misinterpreting body language. She said I yelled, then she said I didn't. At one point, she even claimed I pushed her, only to quickly correct herself and say I just reached toward her aggressively. It was like watching someone try to build a house out of wet paper. Nothing held up under even the lightest pressure. Now, before anyone jumps down my throat with, "You interrogated her," or "she was scared." Let me be clear, this was not some dramatic inquisition. My boyfriend and I barely spoke unless we were asked something directly. My BIL was babying her the entire time, using a gentle tone and calling her sweetie and baby, like she was a toddler who had spilled juice, not a grown woman who was being held accountable. My sister, as always, stayed calm and direct with all of us. She doesn't do drama, and I could tell she just wanted to get this sorted and move on. She had no interest in dragging it out, but she also wasn't going to let someone lie straight to our faces without calling it what it was. She kept repeating, "This just isn't adding up," and honestly, that's the most polite way anyone could describe the disaster unfolding in front of us. What made it worse was how Sally kept trying to pivot the conversation back to how oppressed she felt as a polyamorous woman. Every time she was confronted with a contradiction in her story, she'd bring up being misunderstood or marginalized. And I get it, there's real stigma out there. But this wasn't about her being poly. This was about her being inappropriate, lying about it, and trying to play the victim when confronted. Anyway, after about 45 minutes of going in circles, Sally finally kind of admitted to some level of fault. And I say kind of because her version of accountability was saying, "Okay, I guess I only remember you calling me a cunt that night, but if you said that, I must have said other things to provoke it." I just can't remember clearly. I literally just sat there in silence for a few seconds because what do you even say to that? Like, honestly and truly, what the actual fuck? So now she's simultaneously confessing and still painting herself as the poor, confused victim? She doesn't remember, but is sure I must have said polyphobic things because vibes? Because the story she made up in her head somehow feels more true than what actually happened? Girl. She also kept insisting that she only told my boyfriend he was cute. That's it. That's the hill she's dying on. But I couldn't help but side-eye the whole situation because, Missy ma'am, you just sat here for nearly an hour lying through your teeth, contradicting yourself, making up new versions of the night every 10 minutes. Why would I believe you, a self-proclaimed chronic exaggerator and proven liar, over my boyfriend, who in the entire 3 years we've been together, hasn't given me a single reason to doubt him? Make sense. After we hung up, things got quiet. My sister looked tired and annoyed, and I couldn't blame her. My boyfriend was just relieved the call was over. And, to his credit, my BIL finally apologized. He said that when Sally first texted him about the situation, she sounded so hurt, so emotionally wrecked, that he automatically assumed I must have underplayed things and my boyfriend must have overreacted. I get that emotions can cloud judgment. I really do. But it still hurt to know that someone I've known for over a decade believed her before giving me the benefit of the doubt. He knows me. We've shared family milestones, holidays, inside jokes. He's seen me be blunt, sure, but never cruel, never hateful, and certainly never bigoted. That he doubted me at all, that part is going to sting for a while. As for what happens now, Bil said he's not sure if he's going to break up with Sally. Which, okay. I think that's a little insane, but I also know it's not my relationship. If he wants to keep dating someone who embarrasses him at parties, makes family members uncomfortable, and spins lies when confronted, well, that's his hill to defend. I'm not climbing up it with him. The one silver lining is that my sister and Bil don't really host events or parties much. They're not game night or Sunday dinner people, so even if Sally stays in the picture, I probably won't have to see her again. And thank God for that. Because I don't think I could pretend to smile through another one of her drunken monogamy is oppression, rants, or flirty elbow grabs at my boyfriend.
So yeah.
Maybe not the dramatic mic drop ending some people were hoping for. There was no explosive breakup. No grand declarations. Just an exhausting, awkward truth slowly working its way to the surface, followed by a quiet apology and some tentative damage control. Still, I'm proud I stood my ground. Proud I didn't let her rewrite the story. And beyond that, I'm just grateful for the people who did believe me right away. My sister, my boyfriend,
My mom.
the strangers on the internet who reminded me I wasn't being petty or dramatic for defending boundaries.